As much as I admire Ptolemy's nested spheres and his epicycles as Byzantine and elegant as a boxer's angles and half-turns, and as much as I love Galileo going toe-to-toe with a pope, the man I remember most from middle school science class is Tycho Brahe, a scientist so badass he lost most of his nose in a duel and simply slapped on another one of silver and gold and went about his day. That's true, too. Fighters know about noses. We can spot our own by the obtuse angles at which they often set. A well-placed strike can make blood shoot out in an ion stream or make your eyes water and leave you seeing stars. It really all depends on how you're hit. My nose has been broken 3 times, all by uppercuts. Gotta learn how to block that. Twice during actual fights. My nose, the first time I broke it, I stopped snoring. The second time, my nose was straightened, statue perfect. The third time, it's set at a rakish angle, which I try to wear with the same bravado as Tycho would. My teammate Rudy, on the other hand, got his nose broken from a straight punch, which caused his nose to bridge and crest like the rim of a lunar crater, but not even this impact could faze the Face's terrifying good looks. That's what we called him, the Face, because he was gorgeous. We put him on all our posters. He was an Adonis, and he ate nothing but Burger King. Genetics. Is there nothing that could mar that countenance? And then there's Nosebleed, whose nose bleeds every practice, even if no one touches it. Some unkind trick of physiognomy. Broken noses blaze brightly, to be sure. Audiences hush to them, or are brought to anxious anticlimax by a contest that is most likely far from over. It's true the nose can turn almost any conversation to fighting, but it's really the least of a fighter's worries. It's much worse to burst a hand, or rip a ligament in a knee, or throw out your back. The worst part of a broken nose by far is the perfect blooms it sometimes leaves on your rose-white jujitsu gi. Yeah, that was always the worst part. You just get blood all over yourself. My parents were not happy, by the way. I just like to put that out there. They refused to come see me fight. So be it. I wrote these 2 essays about my father. It's called In the Hippo's Mouth, and this strange thing happened to me, and I don't know at what point in my life this happened, but if I dream about my father, he always comes in the shape of Andre the Giant. Do you know who this is? Okay. Now, my dad is like 5'7", 140 pounds, okay? And Andre is like 6'8", 520 pounds. So there's a disparity there, but they look alike, and they sound alike when they... My parents are immigrants from the Azores, from Portugal, and so my dad's accented English sounds a little bit like Andre's did. So I mentioned The Princess Bride. Do you guys still know what that is? Yeah. Okay, awesome. Okay, oh, fantastic. Okay, great. Okay. Whenever I think about my father, only Andre comes, as in Andre the Giant. I blame The Princess Bride. As Peter Falk tells his grandson, it truly has everything. Fencing, fighting, torture, revenge, giants, monsters, chases, escapes, true love, miracles, not to mention a Spanish swordmaster, a fierce princess, and a dread pirate. And of course, gentle Fezzik, played by the one and only Andrei Rosimov. Andre and my father, it turns out, had a lot more in common than I was aware of in 1987. Before turning to wrestling, Andre had been a factory worker, where he assembled engines for hay balers, though none to lay siege to those who never tired of reminding him of the obvious. Like my father, who pressed suits he would never wear to armor the bodies of those who wouldn't spit on him. But I didn't know any of this then. There was only Fezzik, the hippopotamic landmass from Greenland with a great gift for rhyme. My father, too, was a factory worker with a secret passion for poetry and drama. As a young man in the Azores, he built walls by hand, by day, fitting stones like Antaeus, mortaring skulls to roof the temple he was building to his father beside him. And by night, he performed plays in the villages with his 8 siblings, while Andre was getting rides to school with his neighbor, the playwright Samuel Beckett. Both made their way to the United States in the end, where Andre finally found a place vast enough for him to stand up straight, for once not having to crouch, crunch, or bend, while my father, not a big man to begin with, continued to collapse in on himself, shoulders pointing in like the dipoles of a horseshoe magnet, one rhyme at a time. So I'll read a second essay, part 2 of the Andre Dad essays. Number 2. They do in fact look alike, despite the nearly 400-pound differential. They even sound alike, speaking a sweet-bottomed English, fat and slow-tongued like a sag of hippos nosing at the surface tension of the Zambezi River. My father is not dead, at least not in the material sense, but I know that Andre is. And the part of me that misses him is the same part of me that wanted Hulk Hogan, like Heracles, to scoop slam the giant in WrestleMania 3, until he did. It's the same part of me that laments the failure of Broussard's plan to seed the bio with pods of hippopotami, to eat the water hyacinth, the result of a failed rivalry, something Andre didn't know much about, since his rivalries have grown into legend. Broussard was this guy who had a plan. There was a meat shortage in America, and his plan was to bring in hippopotami to eat this water hyacinth, because there had been like a plague, and then we would have hippopotamus meat to eat, which apparently is sort of pink and sweet. Not that I tried it, but so. And he was in a big rivalry with this other guy whose name I now have totally forgotten, and he lost the gamble, so we never got hippopotami here in America, which is sort of sad, now that I think of it. Andre didn't know too much about this, since his rivalries have grown into legend, but when the undefeated 520-pound giant finally bloated down to the canvas, tearing Hulk Hogan's latissimus dorsi in real life, he was my father, pinned to the couch, waiting for another week to start. It was like the man who was half swallowed by a hippo and then spit out, a failed Jonah, leaving behind one of his arms in the river that made his living. There was this great story I read in the newspaper about a guy who he spent a lot of time with hippos and got too close to one, and it ate him. Swallowed him almost, and then he managed to get out, but one of his arms didn't. So, yeah. Okay. Students don't do this, so this is so much better. Weird facts. Okay. Here's I wrote a series of essays about being a Portuguese American. There aren't a lot of us here, and those of us who are here are sort of secluded in 3 or 4 places. So I grew up in southeastern Massachusetts, and everyone around me was Portuguese, so I assumed that was what it was like. Boy, was I wrong. So I wrote a series of essays about that. This is about when I was young, and I'm trying to remember the title now. Oh, Portuguese Paradise. I moved clear across the country when I was in my late 20s to take my first teaching job in Merced, California, which couldn't have been any different from southeast Massachusetts, and weirdly enough found another pocket of Portuguese Americans. It was really weird. So, all right, this is essay 4 from that series. You guys still know what Super Mario is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know, right? Okay. Number 4. We made do. We jumped on the hoods of cars for fun. It must have been the Super Mario craze that made us mad for jumping on the hoods of cars one summer. We spent most nights in a parking lot pressed between the band house stoop on Hope Street, where we earnestly practiced John Philip Sousa tunes in a dense harbor of smoke, and the church on Columbia Street. We practiced. We kissed each other's sisters, smoked cigarettes stolen from the corner store, and had all-out fistfights to pass the time. And we hopped on cars. Maybe those two mustachioed, blue-collar plumbers turned heroes were proof that we could win a princess or two, that being outsiders didn't automatically make us the bad guys. Or maybe we just liked raging from car to car since none of us could actually afford a Nintendo Entertainment System anyway, or the superfluous little robot that inexplicably dropped a little top in the television commercial. Because sometimes we felt invincible as we soared from one car to another, or grew double size to safely stomp on those who belonged. Thank you for that. So that was from the chapbook, Most Human Contest. If you like those, they're all flash, like little short nonfiction essays. I was thinking a lot about Montaigne, and I was seeing if I could do my own version of that. So working on a full-length version of it. We'll see how long it takes me to finish that. I've just started learning how to fight with a 17th century rapier. So I know that there's a series coming there. It's too early, okay. So this is my new book. I don't have any copies with me because I have not received my author copies yet. It is out on Amazon, so if you like what you hear, you can go to Amazon, just Google, just put in Carlo Matos, it'll come up, or you can go to my blog, carlomatos.blogspot.com, and you can link there. But it's about to come out, or it is out, like right now, it's like brand new, and it's a collection of poems, and it's called It's Best Not to Interrupt Your Experiments, and it sort of takes the idea of the experiment. What if you lived your life and like everything was an experiment? Like that's how you process the world. So there's a series of poems about women who do that, and some of the poems are nonfiction, so they're based on these important female scientists like Lisa Meitner and Émilie du Châtelet and others, and then a lot of them are fictional. So I'd like to read some of those for you, if you do not mind. They don't have titles anymore. Once I sort of came up with the idea for the collection, the titles went away. Instead, they got these dates, so it looks like a lab notebook. Okay, anyway, that's how I sold it. Okay, so this first one, this is, I think, my favorite poem from the collection. It's about Émilie du Châtelet, a 17th century French mathematician and best friend and / lover of Voltaire's. And she was one of the people who translated Newton's Principia into French and spread his influence continentally. Okay, so December 17th, 1706. The least of her accomplishments was that she took a few turns with Voltaire, which is like starting a sentence with, "No offense, but," or, "You know who you remind me of?" When she was a teenager, she could crash card tables with her arithmetical skills whenever she was short some transferable currency to buy more math books. An elegant solution. She really did this. When she needed more math books, she would go to the casino, wipe the floor with the blackjack or whatever it was she played, and then go buy books with it. That's beautiful. And she never lost the trick. A good thing, too, for Voltaire, anyway. Volatile, on the run, and always tediously ill. Except when he was dazzling. So who was he to begrudge her a little fun with Richelieu's grandnephew? It was a small passion, positively infrared. Her skill was the skill of the arrow. Her way was the way of the arrow. Her path was the path of the arrow. Rules were for other people and for the universe. She, on the other hand, was a great man whose only fault was being a woman. That's not my quote. That's from Voltaire. I'm not taking credit for that. Right? It's in quotes. That's not me. That's not me. Okay. This next one is also about a scientist, Rosalind Franklin. You may know of her if you deal with Watson and Crick, right? Those guys, X-ray crystallography, etc. Okay. January 30th, 1953. She often joked that she knew all about holes in coal, but no amount of looking into her crystals revealed the colluvium, downslope creeping men's hearts. For Squirrely Wilkins exposing himself to that other Dr. Watson. Photo 51 was a giant X, and still Watson couldn't decide where to dig. Couldn't deduce, like his namesake, that the phosphate backbone, unlike his own, was on the outside. It's not the first time she needed her Uncle Hugh. He'd be an asset in a lab, taking his whip to a Wilkins or a Watson like he once did to Winston Churchill. But their pretty model didn't kill her, nor Watson's book, but the instinctive touch of the lab equipment and the scattering of soft X-rays. Okay. All right, so I'm going to leave these scientists behind for now. There are others. Here's my favorite one. S.D. Mother wins Nobel Prize. No name. San Diego Mother wins Nobel Prize. I'm going to leave that alone. Okay. All right, so here's one of my fictional creations. June 2nd, 2001. He said he might be falling for her. It might not be an overstatement, though it suggested a singularly Hollywood lexicon. So she decided to measure it. She had never actually seen someone get buffaloed. In the movies, there was a thump and then a graceful slumping into sleep. There was never any blood, never any trace of permanent damage, and they often awoke in bed with a slight headache and a goofy smile on their face. But under lab conditions, his face went green like uranium glass, or oxidized copper, and he moaned like someone delirious from heavy metal poisoning, and smelled of brown bag lunch barfing of apples, even when containing no apple. She had to admit the calligram he was creating while sloping about the floor in cranial blood had some aesthetic value. She might even say it was love, but that required a whole new set of tests, a recalibration of her instruments, and a major paradigm shift. Thank you. Okay. All right, last one. Okay. March 24th, 2014. She drives like a mathematician, rounding up her speed when it ends in 5, plotting the curve against the red light and the force that will be transferred to the car of this guy behind her if he doesn't get off her ass, stat. On airplanes, she calculates the distribution of the TV screens and the probability that the guy sitting next to her will touch her leg by accident and strike up a conversation about the high-quality stone tools this company sells. Her time is geologic, her speech, spectra. And her apartment exists in an extra-dimensional space she cannot measure, but which the models predict. And so does her cat. Thank you so much.